Uh, Hello, Glendora, it's Suzanne, and I am giving you the next episode, um, it has the poster of inherited problems on it, which involves uh, Judge Scarpino when he had to recuse himself because he had worked for Bankers Trust Company. Um, I'm near the end of this whole thing, and I'm going to read off what I have here, what I've gone through. First of all, I want to say this country was brought up with the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. And in my opinion, and others do agree, it was destroyed by lawyers, courts, judges, banks, etc. It's difficult for many people to accept this. I'm convinced now, but it took 31 years of experience. They appear to ignore the motto in the courtroom, "In God We Trust." They don't see it, or they simply do not want to acknowledge it. The lawyers generally are not there to help you. They are out to help themselves, in my opinion. Years ago, one went to their attorneys to help them. To help you. The trouble is, they would pour their souls out, and I was from that generation. But folks, times have changed. Don't pour your souls out to the attorney. The attorneys tend to get paid to bring your news to the enemy, and they will be reimbursed or rewarded for it, in addition to your legal fees. You may find an honest lawyer, which would be few and far in between, and usually from an older generation, more experienced, knowledgeable, and know what's going on, and also not afraid of the system. Being older, they will challenge the system, and you may have a chance. Remember, the devil is strong. However, have faith in God Almighty, and you are able to have the enemy disappear out of fear. Remember, our forefathers' motto was and is, "In God We Trust." As I have said, one judge in surrogate court said to a victim, "There is no justice here." They also said it to me, by the way. "You either take what I'll give you or you get nothing," is what he said to the other victim. His lawyer standing next to him said nothing. So the person took nothing, and as I was told, he couldn't believe what he had heard, and basically I was treated, as I say, in a similar manner when the court said the bank they don't want to speak with you. Another card the judge plays is to slap a victim with the enemy's legal bill, which again was done to me and other victims. Glendora, remember, I'm just trying to make people aware of what is going on. It's a story of my life and what I went through, but what I've learned from all this and have discovered what they do and their tricks. I was asked by Glendora, who is a real friend of mine and TV personality, to do this tape on my life to reveal to the public that there is the American dream to attain, only to have it all taken from you. They try to destroy it directly or indirectly. They even fooled me by suggesting I used my personal savings to pay living expenses while they work things out, and then I'd be reimbursed. The trouble is, I believed them and I trusted them. However, I never got reimbursed. I thought they were top professionals, and I found out they were professional for the wrong purpose. The people I had to deal with were from White & Case and Bankers Trust Company, along with Deutsche Bank, of course, and also with Pillsbury Winthrop Law Firm in New York. Now, in my case, my husband and I were a team. My music opened doors for my husband's business, and he opened doors for my music. And we both worked passionately with our individual professions. You might say it was our American dream we were trying to attain. The lawyer representing Bankers Trust Company, now Deutsche Bank, covering up for Win Rutherford of White and Case, namely David Kiko of Pillsbury Law Firm, put me through at least 5 days, 8 hours a day of depositions until finally Ralph Martinelli, the owner and publisher of the Westchester newspapers, a friend of mine, stopped the abuse. He was a friend of my husband's also. He stopped the abuse they were throwing my way. Plus, of course, they were filming and recording everything. You would think that I was a criminal. Well, the other thing he said, well, you were his second wife, was one of his comments. Tell me, what does that have to do with the will or the accounting? My attorney said nothing. He just sat there. It was not relevant, and this was all stemming from an entity, White and Case, that never had any legal standing, not named on the letters testamentary. So it was one big fraud, and including a fraud on the court. My husband's first marriage was very unhappy and didn't work out for years. He had been separated from his wife for many years. Then I met him through my music, and our friendship blossomed and lasted for 3 years before we married. Our marriage was thought through carefully, and he, my husband, had arranged a second ceremony celebrating 20 years of marriage. However, he sadly passed away 6 months before the event. Actually, the comment second marriage had nothing to do with this. This was not the lawyer's business. What was his purpose? Obviously, we know it was to intimidate me and degrade me if he could. What a small person, what a waste of time and money, which is their big drawing card, money. Glendora, through your years of experience, you have been exposed and witnessed great injustice, and was and is a legal activist, and also had a remarkable life in television. I feel honored by your personal attention and interest in my nightmare, and your belief in God as our help and provider. You are a great inspiration to many people, and you are always very positive. The IRS asked me if I received my marital deduction totaling at least $11 million. When I said no, they opened their office up for me, one of my stepsons, and one of my group to look at all the records, saying, and as he said to me, how will you live and what will you live on? Of course, it was hard to believe I only received in 2 payments half of my legacy. Initially due, it was due 1 month after death, which was to be $500,000, and I received half of it in two payments, actually way beyond the due date, way beyond the 1 month. And they had plenty of liquid cash there to pay any debts and my legal legacy of $500,000 for the first month. I think it was like 2 years later, they never offered me the deeds to my 2 homes, which I finally said, what about my deeds? I haven't received them. And, one of the comments was, well, boys, we better give her deeds. It is unbelievable. As Win Rutherford of White and Case said, this estate has so much money it will never run out. Win, you better not deny this. Of course, they always tried to stop any publicity, and eventually, as I had stated previously, I believe they had protective services tried to get hold of me, called guardianship, which is a business. they're putting people, actually what it does, they put a lot of people in a nursing home and they want to get possession and control of your assets. Well, thank goodness we knew of other families or victims, that we knew, so we knew what to do to prevent them from proceeding. And I think I went through it on one of my episodes, what happened. I've been told the mobsters have more ethics than the banksters and attorneys, from what I heard. It's scary. I must add, Win Rutherford, attorney who drafted my husband's will, disappears and hides, since they knew they abandoned the estate, which I found out, after February 1989, around 3 months after death, since due to representing the bank for a repayment of a $500,000 loan of my husband. However, they still billed for years after they abandoned the estate. And this past June, $600,000, as I had mentioned, I think before, was drawn out of the estate account. Without calling me, discussing anything with me, never anything. Another point I want to make, that a person only goes through what I've gone through usually once in a lifetime, so how much would you really know? How much knowledge would you have or experience in these matters? Unless you were in business with your husband and you knew you were part of the business, which I was not. I was not in the business. I did my music and he did his business. We even knew of a victim who had a law degree, who trusted and was unaware, and they treated her the same way as they did with me. Now, my husband listed Bankers Trust Company as one executor who became a federal felon, which was discovered after my husband's death. A shotgun marriage was arranged by the Federal Reserve between Bankers Trust Company and Deutsche Bank, which was facilitated by law firm of White and Case, who drafted my husband's will. They represented both Bankers Trust Company and Deutsche Bank, as I'd been told, and the Federal Reserve listed the McCormick estate as a liability against Bankers Trust and White and Case. Bankers Trust was a federal felon. It is my understanding that during the due diligence period, Deutsche Bank discovered criminal activities, and an agreement was reached that Bankers Trust Company would plead guilty to 3 federal felonies in the Southern District of New York, and the criminal liability would be capped at $19.1 million. The subject of the criminal charges were the unclaimed funds from around the country. This all started around 1998, 1999. It started in 1998, proceeded by the collapse of long-term capital. This all took place before Deutsche Bank purchased Bankers Trust Company on June 4, 1999 for $10 billion. Just a little summary to give you about them. My opinion is that once a corporation or individual starts their dishonest actions, they get deeper and deeper into lying and trouble. The cancer keeps spreading and will eventually kill them. Injustice cannot survive. It's so apparent in our great country, the USA, that injustice has grown for decades, until it's finally and eventually going to explode, and the truth will come to the surface. They are like rats caught in a corner and become hysterical. Thank goodness we have some powerful and determined people who believe in God and love their country. Tell me, as I look back, why didn't Win Rutherford of White and Case, who drafted my husband's will, be a nice guy and review the will with me after the death of my husband and go over my husband's desires and wishes, especially since my husband wanted me to have his management company, and he never discussed it with me. He just said, well, maybe you better just sell it to Eddie Jr. for $1. He would like it. My husband didn't want any of his children in the company. And they could have either sold it or, sold it or whatever they wanted to do with it. I mean, you didn't have to give it to the son. So that was a bad decision. After all, I was still the main beneficiary, the wife, and one of the legal executors, which they should have discussed things with. I didn't confront him at the time when he didn't discuss the will, because with his accommodating personality, and they all are very accommodating personality, as though you must trust them. And I trusted him to do the right thing. And of course I was grieving, I had my mind on other things, and they sensed all that. I heard Donald Trump on the internet admit when he was younger, on an interview, that he would try to pick people he thought he could trust, only to find out he couldn't trust them. He said it was very difficult to judge who you could trust and who you couldn't. And we know Donald Trump is far more experienced than I am. I finally exposed them when I was advised to picket and protest publicly for educational and informational purposes, and there were people who thanked us for alerting them. I, of course, had trouble getting publicity since they practiced censorship, not wanting to reveal these facts to the public. In fact, when one person phoned from a paper and a Deutsche Bank spokesperson's response was, the estate went bankrupt due to estate taxes. This was an outright lie, just like many lies, they say. There were millions and millions in the liquidating stocks and bonds. Taxes may be totaled, I don't know, a very small percentage of the liquid money. And even my husband's $500,000 would be paid. However, they did it. There was plenty of money there. If they are so professional, why don't what I'm trying to say here is there was a person who owned an insurance company. He said to me, Suzanne, if they are so professional, why didn't they advise your husband to buy insurance to cover the taxes? Why wasn't your husband informed about this? Very interesting. Anyway, again, I repeat, Win Rutherford of White and Case, who drafted the will, stated there's so much money in this estate it'll never run out. And again, he can't deny that. And why did he say after, well, I guess it was another time or after that, but he said, Suzanne, you are the last one to get any money. I was so taken back that I couldn't believe it. And again, I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. I couldn't believe it. He better explain. I guess that's why they had me use my personal money to pay my living bills for my living. When the Palm Beach Post called the Deutsche Bank for a comment when my article was in the Post, Palm Beach, they said, don't you dare publish this. And the editor of the paper said, you are in the banking business and we are in the newspaper publishing business. So you better mind your own business. The editor said to me, I think you are only the tip of the iceberg. This goes deep, and it sure has gone deep. Other publications were stopped, including a major TV station in New York. They were going to interview me and have me on the television, and it was stopped immediately. However, I got into Forbes magazine, Fortune, Worth magazine, Absolute, Manhattan Style, New York Post, Palm Beach Post, and Palm Beach Daily News, just to name a few. Many of them had to tone the tragedy down. I was part of a Forbes article and I was cut out. Consequently, I spoke to a member of the Forbes family and I was told I was cut out by the editor who went to school with Win Rutherford of White and Case at Princeton. Forbes then wrote a separate article about me picketing in Palm Beach, Florida. There are many prominent people that we meet through our picketing that were and are victims. I can give examples without giving their names since they prefer not to be publicized. I'm sure there are many, many more. However, just to reinstate my point, I will give some examples. However, I think I may quote some scripture which I wanted to do before I give you the list, so they knew exactly the bank. The other thing I have here on my list is they knew exactly the money I didn't receive, including my initial legacy due 1 month after death. So the IRS marital deduction and so forth, and the IRS made us very aware of things, and so we got knowledge right along, of course, and proof. And of course, you know, they want legal fees as with a lot of victims, and they want you to pay their legal fees. Now, how about my legal fees as an executor fighting for the estate? That's what executors are there for, to stand up for the right thing, for the children and myself, costing me over $1 million. And I helped the children that way and myself trying to get justice for us. And what happened to the $1.5 million that disappeared the week my husband was in a coma, which was not in the final accounting? What about the trust that was supposed to be set up for me? What else is not in the final accounting? It's been over 30 years since my husband's death, which consists of constant dealing with these criminals and going to court. Now, I'm just going to give a few passages that I really want to do, which will help maybe people to understand where I am as a person and how I believe. One is Joshua 1 verse 9. It says, "This is my command." And I often would read it. I know Glendora would read it to me. She would keep quoting it and so on. "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Another passage, Isaiah 10 verse 1 through 4. "What sorrow awaits the unjust judges and those who issue unfair laws. They deprive the poor of justice and deny rights of needy among my people. They prey on widows and take advantage of orphans. What will you do when I punish you? When I send disaster upon you from a distant land? To whom will you turn for help? Where will your treasures be safe? You will stumble along as prisoners." Jeremiah 7 verse 5 and 6. The God of Israel says, "I will be merciful only if you stop your evil thoughts and deeds and start treating each other with justice. Only if you stop exploiting foreigners, orphans, and widows. Only if you stop murdering, and only if you stop harming yourselves by worshiping idols." Remember, God is with us. God has stopped their evil ways. Now, 2 Chronicles 19 verse 7. "Fear the Lord and judge with integrity, for the Lord our God does not tolerate perverted justice, partiality, or the taking of bribes." And then we have the passage, the chapter on the persistent widow, which I remember I wanted at one time, and I couldn't find it in the Bible. Someone had told me about it, I think, and I was trying to find it. Finally, I called a girlfriend of mine in Michigan, And she called a friend of hers and they got it for me. I said, oh, that's exactly the passage I wanted. But anyway, it's in Luke 18, 1 through 5. It's the persistent widow. A widow went to the judge repeatedly. Now this the version that I have is from another Bible. It's not the King James Version, so it's easier language to understand. A widow went to the judge repeatedly saying, "Give me justice in this dispute with my enemy." The judge ignored her until finally he said to himself, "I don't fear God or care about people, but this woman is driving me crazy. I'm going to see that she gets justice because she is wearing me out with her constant requests." Okay, those are the passages that I have picked out, and I think for my next episode I'm going to list for you some of the people to prove it's not just me, it's a lot of people that have suffered from, and they have suffered too. These people have gone through things. It's been very difficult in their life when they had planned on certain inheritance or they were entitled to it. Maybe they worked for the company or they were entitled, but they didn't get it. It was unbelievable. And there's one victim I can name right now. A banker's trust was told by the judge, Scarpino's law secretary, Rob DeBella, now a Supreme Court judge, stated the money you're looking for is stolen money. So in other words, he's not entitled for that reason. It was millions and millions of dollars in a trust. Does it just belong to the banks and the courts? The question is, whose money is it if it's not his or the estate's, because it's in trust? Besides, is that statement true that he made, that it was stolen money? What's that got to do with it? I mean, it's unreal the way these people speak to you. The victim said to me, "Suzanne, we are not alone and we are not crazy." So that's another thing. If you keep fighting, sometimes they say, "Oh, she's crazy. She's a crazy old lady." I remember one, actually I think it was Rob DeBella, I don't know, one of them of the court said, "Oh, well, this crazy old lady doesn't want to settle." Well, what do they call settle? Settle for nothing? No, I don't want to do that. What they did, and they have to answer for it. And I'll fight till the end of my life. I will fight for justice. So this is one of the people of Bankers Trust, and I think perhaps this has to be the end of this episode, and I think I have one more to do to kind of finalize and give you a few more informative subjects. Thank you, Glendora.